Well, I hope that you're having a great day today. I hope the week has gone well for you, and I hope it will continue to go well for you. We're in Job chapter 3 tonight. We're going to finish Job chapter 3, and we may get into chapter 4. I doubt it, but we'll definitely be in chapter 4 next week. Before we get started tonight, if you haven't read Job chapter 3, please pause the video, go read Job chapter 3. But before you do that, we want to let you know that if you are hurting in any way, we love you and we are praying for you. And if we can do anything for you at all, we just ask that you would ask us. I don't think we have any announcements tonight, so we will maybe recap for a minute what we talked about last week. You remember we talked about Job's counter-cosmic incantation. Job is cursing the day of his birth. His suffering is so terrible, it's so horrific, that Job thinks it would have been better for him just to have not been born at all. Job wants that curse to take place, you remember, and to ensure that that curse takes place, he calls on those the best sorcerers of the ancient world, those who are able to rouse up Leviathan. Job is serious. Job is serious about what he's saying, but Job is hurting. Hurting probably more than we can even begin to understand or comprehend. Job wants rest. That's what he's after. Well, we're in verse 14. Job chapter 3, verse 14. That's where we are. Let me get my Bible over there. I flipped over somewhere else. Job chapter 3, verse 14. Well, let's go back to verse 13. For then I would have lain down and been quiet. I would have slept, then I would have been at rest. With kings and counselors of the earth, who rebuilt ruins for themselves, or with princes who had gold, who filled their houses with silver. Notice that Job shifts from cursing the day of his birth to lamenting his agony. And while he's continuing to lament his agony, he starts to talk about Sheol. Now, in the Old Testament, we've talked about it before, but in the Old Testament, Sheol was the place of the dead. It's sometimes called the grave. It's sometimes called the pit. But it is the place that all people went when they died. Righteous or wicked, everybody went to Sheol. Job wants to go to Sheol because it is in Sheol that Job could, what did he say? He would have rest with kings and counselors of the earth. Now, it's kind of interesting maybe to throw out here that kings, we all know what they did in their job that we read about in the Old Testament. But counselors are often closely associated with kings because in they would offer the king guidance in matters of the state. So they would often give the king wisdom. But nevertheless, Job wants to be at rest with those guys, okay? The kings are dead and the counselors are dead, and Job says, I want to go be with them. He also says, who rebuilt ruins for themselves. Now that's interesting. What are we talking about? Who rebuilt ruins for themselves? What do these ruins refer to? Well, there's two main options of what ruins refer to. They might be cities or they might be monuments that were lying in despair. We know that kings would often rebuild certain monuments in order to promote their greatness and promote their power. But it also might be a monumental tomb that a king would build for himself when he died. Either way, what do ruins refer to? Well, those are the two options. Now, what's interesting is we keep reading and we see, or with princes who had gold, who filled their houses with silver. So, if we take the idea that the ruins refer to monumental tombs that kings would build for themselves when they died, we get the idea that people would often take their most valuable possessions and they would bring them into their tomb. So they had this idea that when they died and they went into the afterlife, their most valuable possessions would come with them. So they would be better off in the afterlife if they had these tombs where they could fill with their valuable possessions because they could take it with them. Now, we know when we leave this earth, we're not taking anything with us, but that's not always how the ancient people thought. Ancient people thought, no, you can take your valuable possessions with you in the afterlife, and it will enhance your, I don't want to say stay. I'm looking for a better word. Enhance your, I don't know, maybe experience in the afterlife. Maybe that's the only way I can think of saying it right now. But either way, that's how they thought. So maybe that helps us to identify what the ruins refer to. Okay, we keep reading. Verse 16. Or why was I not hidden as a stillborn child, as infants who never see the light? Now, you remember Job was cursing the day of his birth, and he switched to lamenting his agony more in talking about Sheol. Well, verse 16 may appear out of place a little bit because he stops talking about Sheol again, and he starts lamenting the fact that he was even born. Job, what's he saying? Job is saying, look, why? He's asking the same question that he asked earlier in chapter 3. Why did someone have to accept me? Why did my parents have to accept me? Why couldn't I have been born and tossed to the side where nobody cared about me at all? Why couldn't I have been as a stillborn? I would come out of my mother's womb and I would go straight to the grave. Why did God have to give me life? That's key. Why did God have to give me life? This is a lament, a complaint against God. Job is hurting. We've said that probably 100 times as we've talked about chapter 3. He's hurting very badly. And he believes that if that would have just happened, if verse 16 would have just taken place, where he could have been as a stillborn child or as an infant who never saw the light, well, if he could have done that, he wouldn't be experiencing the things that he's experiencing in his life. Let's go to verse 17. There the wicked would see. Now, we're transitioning again from, we went to Sheol, we transitioned away from Sheol, and now we're going back to Sheol. All right. Or why was I not as a hidden stillborn child, as infants who never see the light? There the wicked would cease from troubling, and there the weary are at rest. There the prisoners are at ease together. They hear not the voice of the taskmaster. What do we learn about Sheol from those two verses? We learn that Sheol is a place where there is no trouble. In fact, there are people in Sheol that used to cause a lot of trouble, but they don't cause trouble anymore. They've ceased from doing that. Everybody, whether good or bad in Sheol, is left in this almost powerless state. No one's causing trouble. Now notice this also. There the prisoners are at ease together. They hear not the voice of the taskmaster. On earth, we create these social structures, right? Sheol does not mirror those social structures. Okay? The taskmaster is not over the laborer in Sheol. The taskmaster and the laborer are equal in Sheol. No one is elevated to a position of authority. No one is elevated in such a way that their superiority is shown. Nobody in Sheol is lord over another person. Now imagine if you were the laborer, how would you feel? I mean, that would make you feel pretty good, wouldn't it? I mean, because most of the laborers, well, how do they do the work? Well, they do the work while their taskmasters are shouting at them, and when they don't do what their taskmaster wants, their taskmaster will get the whip out and he'll start to beat them. Not in Sheol. You see why Job might want to go to Sheol? It's a place of rest. All these worries and cares that we have on this earth, they're not in Sheol. There's no turmoil in Sheol. That fear that a terrible ruler causes everyone as he roams about the earth, that fear and anxiety, it's not in Sheol. The wicked on earth often are wealthy, and they create their wealth at the expense of hurting others. Not in Sheol. There the prisoners are at ease together. Now, who are the prisoners? Well, I suppose there's multiple options. Maybe it's a person that has been forced into labor, so they act as a slave. That would definitely fit with the view that, the taskmaster has authority over the laborer. Maybe it's a prisoner of war. That would also fit. I'm not sure. What we know is the prisoners are at ease together. It's almost, you could say, peaceful in Sheol. The small and the great are there, and the slave is free from his master. Sheol is no respecter of persons. It doesn't matter if you occupied a position of authority on earth, that won't be that way in Sheol. It doesn't matter if you were a poor and lowly person on the earth. People walked on you, they trampled on you, they hit you, they mocked you, they ridiculed you. You'll be the same with them in Sheol. It's no respecter of persons. Both great and small are there. And the slave is free from his master. No one in Sheol is superior. Verse 20. Why is light given to him who is in misery, and life to the bitter in soul, who long for death, but it comes not, and dig for it more than for hidden treasures, who rejoice exceedingly and are glad when they find the grave? Job asks some very disturbing question. He asked a very disturbing question. Why is it that God gives people life when those people want to die more than anything because their life just isn't worth living anymore? Notice how he characterizes those people. They're in misery. They're bitter and in soul. They're miserable. So why does God give them life? There's no joy for living, Job says, for these people. Not at all. The light of the day, it makes them more aware of their ills, their sorrows. These people long for death, and when they find it, man, are they joyous. Now, maybe we could wrestle with a question if we were if we were meeting physically to do this lesson right now, that we could talk about, is God, should he be said to be he's not compassionate to people because he won't let these people die. Instead, he lets them live and their life is miserable. Well, I don't know. We could talk about that. Maybe that's something to give that thought. But what Job is saying is he's one of those people. He's miserable as all get out, and he cannot figure out why God has allowed him to keep living when he wants more than anything to die. Well, we go to verse 23. Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden, whom God has hedged in? What is this? A man whose way is hidden. It's a man that has no purpose. He can't find purpose in his life anymore. There's no meaning for his life anymore. All the meaning that he once had in his life, it is taken away. That's Job, isn't it? Job knew before he had meaning in his life, but now everything has been taken away and Job can't find meaning or purpose in his life at all. That's why he thinks it's better for him just to die. His destiny, it's hidden. All life continues to do for Job is just increase his sorrow. God, he says, has hedged him in. For my sighing comes instead of my bread, and my groanings are poured out like water. For the thing that I fear comes upon me, and what I dread befalls me. I am not at ease, nor am I quiet. I have no rest, but trouble comes. Job is not doing well. In fact, what he once feared in his life has happened to him. Job's thought about losing all his stuff before. He's thought about losing his children, apparently. He's thought about... It's all happened to him. And all he wants is rest. Well, we'll be in chapter 4 next week. I hope, again, that you have a great rest of the week. I can't wait to see everybody Sunday. God bless.